Today I'm going to be giving you a high-level rundown of the main healthcare financial ratios. So the next time you're out with your friends, you'll be able to give them all of the exciting details. Hi, my name is Matt Borchard, and I'm a principal in the digital group at CLA. Thank you for watching our inaugural video. Healthcare is incredibly complicated, and whether you're an advisor, board member, or leadership and management, our goal in this channel is to demystify it. We're going to create a series of 5-minute entertaining and educational videos that give you the tools you need to be successful. What are profitability ratios? They tell you how well your organization generates profit. This is important because, as the saying goes, no margin, no mission. We're going to be going over the typical profitability ratios a healthcare organization might expect to utilize. The first ratio is operating EBIDA. This is your profitability from your core mission of your business before capital expenses, which in this case is interest, depreciation, and amortization. Typically it is shown as a percentage, and with this ratio, the higher the ratio, the better. The second ratio is operating margin. This is the profit on your core mission of your business, and this ratio includes capital expenses, including depreciation and interest. Typically it is shown as a percentage, and with this ratio, the higher the ratio, the better. The third ratio is total margin. Sometimes it's called net income, but this is your overall profitability from all activities, which would include non-operating activities like investment income. Typically, it is also shown as a percentage, and with this ratio, the higher the ratio, the better. The fourth and final profitability ratio we'll be talking about today is debt service coverage ratio. This ratio tells you how many times you would have been able to pay off your long-term debt payments that year. If this ratio is under 1, that means you did not produce enough cash to pay your annual debt payments, let alone invest in capital. Typically, this ratio is shown with an X that depicts how many times you can pay off your annual debt service. And with this ratio, the higher the ratio, the better. What are liquidity ratios? They help inform you if you had enough cash to pay the bills and how your working capital is impacting your cash flow. The first ratio is days in accounts receivable. This ratio lets you know how long it takes for you to receive payments for your services. The longer you wait to collect your AR, the higher the probability it becomes uncollectible. Typically, this ratio is shown as a number, and the lower the days, the better. The second ratio is days cash on hand. This ratio shows how many days you'd be able to survive if there was no longer cash coming in the door. Being able to maintain a strong cash position is important, as the future of healthcare reimbursement and care models are huge unknowns. Typically, this ratio is shown in days, and the higher the ratio, the better. The third ratio is the current ratio. This ratio compares your current assets to your current liabilities. Typically, the higher the better, but if it is too high, it might be a sign you may not be investing your assets properly. The fourth ratio and the last liquidity ratio we'll discuss is the average payment period. This is the opposite of days in AR, and it's how long it takes you to pay your bills. The higher it is means the longer you're keeping your cash. What are capital and leverage ratios? They help you understand how much debt your organization has. These are important because, as the healthcare industry is very capital intensive. The first ratio is average age of plant, and this ratio gives you an estimate on how old your campus is. Typically is shown as a number of years, and the lower the ratio, the better. The second ratio is capital spending as a percentage of revenue. This shows how much we are reinvesting in our campus. This is shown as a percentage, and we would typically see it as 3 to 5% of revenue. The third ratio is debt to capitalization. This ratio shows how much debt makes up your long-term capital mix. This ratio is important because there's a tipping point where it becomes almost impossible to create enough cash flow to pay off the debt service. Typically, this ratio is shown as a percentage, and the lower the ratio, the better. The fourth and final capital leverage ratio we'll discuss is cash to debt. This ratio helps you understand how your cash reserves compare to your long-term debt, and the higher, the better. We're going to take a deeper dive into all these ratios and talk about the calculations in future videos and start discussing targets. When doing long-term strategic financial planning, if I had to pick my 3 favorite ratios, they'd be operating EBIDA, days cash on hand, and debt service coverage. While they're not perfect for every organization and every situation, 9 times out of 10 they'll provide you excellent insights on if your strategic plan is financially viable. Hopefully you'll find this video valuable, and if you do, please smash that like and subscribe so we can reach and help as many healthcare leaders and advisors as possible.